Hello and welcome to this video where we are going to cover the summarized written text part of the writing section, and I'm going to show you how you're scored. I'm going to go a sample question, I'm going to show you how to take down notes, and we're going to go over a sample summary so that you can nail this part of the exam. Alright, let's get straight into it. So in this section, you're given a passage on screen and you need to summarize it into one sentence. You get 10 minutes for each task. So you can get around 2 to 3 questions for this particular question type. And you are scored on content, form, grammar, vocabulary. So on content, you're scored on a scale of 0 to 2. On form, you're scored on a scale of 0 to 1, which is writing one sentence. And on grammar, you're scored on the scale of 0 to 2, and vocabulary you're scored on a scale of 0 to 2. Alright, let's move forward. So there are two main skills that you need to have to do well in this summarized written text. The first one is condensing content. So you have a long passage which you need to kind of make into one sentence. So that's a key skill, to condense content or summarize content. And the next one is structuring your sentences correctly. So the grammar is an important part of the scoring here. So as long as you can have one grammatically correct sentence, you're going to do well in this part of the exam. So all those two skills you need to master. One is condensing content, and the other one is structuring your sentence correctly. The biggest tip in summarized written text is to limit your sentence to 30 words. Okay, keep the word count between 10 to 30 words, or 35 words maximum. And we've tested this in the exam. We've looked at Pearson's sample answers that they provided. Some of them are short as like 10 words long. And yeah, like I said, like the more you write, the more chances of you making errors in the exam. And generally about 35 words is considered the standard length to have like an English sentence. Anything more than 35 words, it tends to be too complex and you'll have grammatical errors in it. So keep the word count between 10 to 30 words. It's a myth that you need to write a super long sentence for you to do well in this question type. You're not going to cover all of the content in your passage in your answer. So you just need to cover the main point and maybe one or two supporting points, which you can easily do if you stick to this word count. And by doing that, you'll also not have grammar errors, which is important for this question type. Cool. Now let's go into the second part, which is going over an example, and I'm going to show you how to take down, how to summarize or condense the content effectively. So this is a particular question here. Let's read it and let's look at what are the main points. So there's a great debate among many people, and sometimes in the news, on whether global warming is real. Okay, some climate scientists looking at the data and facts agree that the planet is warming. So what I'm doing in this method is I'm kind of highlighting the key points in each sentence. Okay, and you can do this for a sentence, or you can do this for every two sentences, but the key thing is I'm just highlighting kind of one or two keywords that stand out for me in each sentence. So the first one, I came to the conclusion that the main thing that they're talking about, the topic, is global warming. Now in the next one, the scientists looking at the data and facts agree that the planet is warming. So that's kind of a main point, that the planet is warming. So I underline that. Now if you're in the exam, you can just take down a note. While many view the effects of global warming to be more substantial and more rapidly occurring than others do, the scientific consensus on climate change related to global warming is that the average temperature of Earth has risen between this to this over the past 100 years. So this whole long statement, the most important point that they are trying to convey is that the average temperature of Earth has risen. And I'll just underline that so I know that it's something that I can later use in my summary. So right now at this stage, I'm reading through the paragraph, trying to find out, okay, what is the most important bits, and I'm noting them so that I can use them in my summary. The next one is about the increased volumes of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases related by burning of fossil fuels, land clearing, agriculture, and other human activities are believed to be the primary source of global warming that has occurred in the past 50 years. So now they're talking about, okay, they've introduced the topic global warming. Now they're talking about, okay, what are the causes of global warming? And they've listed down a few items here. The main key thing that's common in all these items is that it's caused by human activities. So that's why I've underlined human activities here. Okay, so as you're reading this along with me, try to make an effort to really understand the passage and try to understand what it's saying rather than just reading through it mechanically. So a lot of your skills in the summarized written text is coming from your reading abilities. Okay, so if you can read and understand content really well, you're going to do well in the summarized written text. Okay, the next sentence is scientists from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change carrying out global warming research have recently predicted that average global temperatures could increase between zero point 0.1 and 0.58 degrees by the year 2100. So this committee has done a lot of research and they say that temperatures are further predicting to rise. So that's like a key point. So that's why I underline that one. And moving on, they're saying that changes resulting from global warming may include rising sea levels due to the melting of polar ice caps, as well as increase in occurrence of severity of storms and other severe weather events. Now, over here, I have underlined rising sea levels because that's the kind of main thing that they're going to that's the main conclusion of this sentence, and they're given reasons for that. But the main point is that sea levels are rising. So now that I've underlined all these points here, or if you're doing it in the exam, you maybe took short notes of 2 or 3 sentences, and what I get is something like this. So I have around 6 points of 3 words or so. The key thing is not to write down notes that are too long or not to highlight points that are too long. You want to just have short, crisp content of the keywords that you can then later use for your summary. So now our job is to summarize this into one sentence. So this is much more easier to work with along rather than this. Now even in this, I don't need to include everything, but if points that are certainly are repeated, I'll want to include them in particular. So let's see kind of how we've done that. So the summary that I kind of came up with was scientists agree that global warming caused by humans has not only caused average temperatures of the earth to rise, but may also lead to an increase in sea levels and other climatic changes. So over here, I've kind of included most of the key points here. I've kind of eliminated this one because it was a bit redundant. They're saying that global warming is real, and I've included that it's caused by humans. Scientists agree that global warming caused by humans has not only caused average temperatures of the earth to rise, but may also lead to an increase in sea levels and other climatic changes. So that's a really good way to include all of these points into this summary. As you can see, this is not too long. It's definitely less than 35 words, and it's an answer that will do really well in the exam because I've captured all the key content. I've captured the main point, which is around global warming. I've added supporting points as well. My vocabulary is good and diverse. I've picked up words directly from the passage, which is fine to do, and no grammar errors, and that's why it's a good answer. So the format here that I kind of used is A has not only caused B, but also X and Y. Can be used when one event has caused 2 or more noticeable events. So that's kind of how you summarize and condense content. That's one way. Now you don't have to do it in this way if you're really good in reading, and if you can understand content really well, then you can simply read through the passage, get a sense of what the main key point is, and add 1 or 2 supporting points to your answer. However, if you're struggling with kind of understanding what is the main point, then you can use this method. Obviously practice this a few times to see how you're doing with the time when it comes to timing, and make sure that you're completing this process within the 10-minute mark. Okay, some frequently asked questions on this, how to deal, and also on this, in case you want a template that does really well, we have a template that's part of the template pack that we have. All profits from the template pack goes towards a goal of planting 10,000 trees, so it's not for profit. In case you want to support that cause, and if you want to use a template that does really well in the exam, click on that link. If not, you can just kind of stick to the structure that I mentioned here. However, the template works really well, so I highly recommend getting it. Yeah, summarize written text, frequently asked questions, how to deal with complicated passages. Now, whether you have a complicated passage or a simple passage, you can still follow that same approach that I've talked about, where you're going through it, you're highlighting what you think is important point for each sentence or each set of 2 or 3 sentences, and then you are working with a smaller set of data like this to summarize instead of a huge passage that's really complicated. So going through this process can help you actually make a complex passage simple because you're condensing it really well. So this, it's the same way. If you get a complicated or passage, this method works even better. How to deal with unlinked passages. So this is something to watch out for. So sometimes in the exam you might get a passage where they might lead with some thing that's not related to the main point of a passage. So for example, over here, instead of, they might be talking about these days the world is very industrialized. You have many, there's a lot of developments happening on the economic front. Many industries are booming. Human progress has accelerated a lot in this last 50 years. So they might start off with something like that, but later on they might transition into something like, oh, all these activities have led to a devastating impact on the environment, and then they go about talking about in details about how the environment is being harmed. So the first part is kind of just an introduction, whereas the main part was about the environment being damaged. Now you want to watch out for those instances where they're leading with some other kind of another topic altogether, but the main topic is something different. So yeah, just watch out for those and make sure that in those instances you kind of capture the key points apart, and then not those other parts that are not really the main point. How do you get good marks on content for reading score? Now this part, this part of the exam is also scored for the reading part. The summarized written text contributes to your reading score. So the main thing to do well on content is to summarize the sentence correctly. So as long as you're following the structure that I recommended, and don't obsess over content here, as long as you're covering like the main point and maybe one or two supporting points, you're fine. So do not obsess too much over content. You're not expected to cover everything, and you can't cover everything in your answer. So yeah, as long as you stick to the main point and a few supporting points, and if you use that method that I show you, you should be fine. And if you have problems with your grammar and structure of the sentences, then you can use the template, and that will work well as well. Cool, that's it for this part. We've completed the writing section. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Again, if you want the template pack and if you want to support the cause of planting 10,000 trees, click the link in the description and make the use of that in your exam. Bye, and see you guys in the next video.